The phone rang at exactly 10:47 on a rainy Thursday night. I remember the time because I just looked at the old clock hanging beside my back door. My right knee had been aching ever since the temperature dropped that afternoon, so I'd carried a mug of hot coffee onto the porch instead of going to bed. Rain tapped steadily against the metal roof, and the porch light threw a warm circle across the wet wooden steps. I almost let the call go to voicemail. Emily hardly ever called that late. When I answered, all I heard was breathing. Then a whisper. "Dad?" Something in her voice made every hair on my neck stand up. I left him. I didn't speak right away. In 33 years of raising my daughter, I'd learned there were moments when silence gave a frightened person room to breathe. Then another sound came through the phone. A loud bang. Someone pounding on a door. "Emily," I said quietly. "I'm in the bathroom at a gas station." She sounded like she was trying not to cry. "He's outside." Another bang. "Emily!" A man's voice shouted through the door. "Come on, stop being dramatic." Trevor. I had only met him a handful of times, but I'd never liked the way he smiled. Too polished, too practiced. Like every expression had been rehearsed in front of a mirror. "Dad," she whispered again. "I don't know what to do." "You locked the door?" "Yes." "Good." Another hard slam rattled the bathroom door. "Listen to me." My voice stayed calm, even though my heart had started pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. "Keep your phone against your ear." "Okay." "Take one slow breath." She tried. It came out shaky. "Another one?" Outside, Trevor's voice softened. "Emily, sweetheart, you're embarrassing yourself." No answer. "I know you're in there." Another pause. Then he laughed. "We'll laugh about this tomorrow." I closed my eyes for a second. That wasn't the laugh of a man trying to fix an argument. It was the laugh of someone who believed he already owned the ending. "Where are you?" I asked. "The pilot station, on Highway 321 in Maryville." "I know exactly where you are." I stood up, nearly spilling my coffee. "You stay in that bathroom." "What if he comes in?" "He won't." "You don't know that." "I know this." I grabbed my truck keys from the table beside the porch swing. "I'm on my way." My old Toyota Tacoma had almost 200,000 miles on it. The windshield wipers squeaked every few passes, and the heater took forever to warm up. Margaret used to tease me that I'd keep driving it until the wheels fell off. She'd probably been right. As I backed out of the driveway outside Knoxville, I glanced at the empty rocking chair beside mine. The porch light stayed on. It had stayed on every night since Margaret died 6 years earlier. She used to say, "Leave it burning. You never know who might need to find their way home." I pressed a little harder on the gas pedal. Rain blurred the highway lights. Emily stayed on the phone almost the whole drive. Sometimes neither of us spoke. I could hear Trevor pacing outside the bathroom, sometimes knocking, sometimes pretending to leave. Then she'd hear footsteps again. "He keeps saying he's sorry," she whispered. "Do you believe him?" "No." "Then don't open that door." "I should have left months ago." "No." "What?" "You should have left the first time he made you afraid." Silence. Then she quietly said, "I know." 27 minutes later, I pulled into the gas station. The rain had eased into a light drizzle. Trevor stood outside the building with his hands in his jacket pockets. He looked exactly like the kind of man who wanted strangers to think he was reasonable. Nice haircut. Clean boots. Relaxed smile. When he spotted my truck, that smile widened. I climbed out slowly. My knee protested the moment I put weight on it. Growing older teaches you to hide pain from people looking for weakness. Trevor walked toward me. "Mr. Carter." I didn't answer. He stopped a few feet away. "I appreciate you coming." Still nothing. He gestured toward the convenience store. "This is really just a misunderstanding between me and Emily." I looked past him toward the bathroom hallway. Then I looked back at him. Not anymore. His smile tightened for the first time. "Sir, couples argue." "They do. And sometimes people overreact." "They do. So maybe you could convince her to come out." "No." He blinked. "No, no." For several seconds, neither of us moved. Cars pulled in for gas. A woman hurried inside carrying a little boy wearing dinosaur pajamas. A truck driver filled his diesel tank without paying us the slightest attention. Ordinary life kept moving while my daughter's world had nearly come apart inside a locked bathroom. Trevor leaned closer. "I love your daughter." I looked him straight in the eye. "Then why is she hiding from you?" He didn't answer. Instead, he smiled again. Smaller this time, like he was filing my face away somewhere. "I think you've misunderstood me." "I don't." The bathroom door opened. Emily stepped out slowly. She looked exhausted. Mascara streaked beneath her eyes. She carried only her purse. Nothing else. For one terrible second, she looked like the little girl who used to wake from nightmares and walk barefoot into my bedroom. She saw me. Everything she'd been holding together finally cracked. She crossed the floor in 3 quick steps and wrapped both arms around me. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I hugged her back. "You have nothing to apologize for." Trevor took 1 step forward. "Emily," she flinched. That tiny movement told me more than 1,000 words ever could. I shifted slightly so I stood between them. Trevor noticed. His expression stayed pleasant. His eyes didn't. "You'll regret this," he said softly enough that only I could hear. Maybe he meant for it to sound like concern. It didn't. "It isn't too late." I opened the passenger door of the Tacoma. "Get in, sweetheart." Emily climbed inside without looking back. Trevor remained standing in the rain. He didn't yell, didn't threaten, didn't chase the truck. He simply watched us leave. Somehow that unsettled me even more. Halfway home, Emily finally spoke. "I thought I could fix him." "You can't fix someone who doesn't think they're broken." She stared out the window. "I didn't tell you because I was embarrassed." I nodded. "I know. I thought you'd think I was stupid." I reached across the console and squeezed her hand for just a second. "You made it out." She looked at me. "That's what matters tonight. The rest could wait." When we turned onto my gravel driveway, the porch light was still glowing through the rain. Emily smiled faintly. "Mom always left it on." "She did?" As soon as we stepped onto the porch, Emily's phone buzzed. One new message. "Unknown number." She opened it before I could stop her. "You just signed your family's death warrant." She froze. I took the phone gently from her hand. For several seconds, I simply stared at the words. Then I looked up at the porch light Margaret had asked me never to turn off. The rain kept falling. Somewhere out in the darkness, Trevor already believed fear belonged to him. He had no idea that patience had belonged to me for a very long time. By morning, the rain had moved east and left the yard smelling like wet leaves and red clay. Emily slept in the guest room. I didn't sleep much at all. I sat at the kitchen table with my reading glasses low on my nose, her phone beside my coffee cup, and a yellow legal pad in front of me. Old habits don't retire just because a man does. I wrote down the time she called me, the name of the gas station, the exact wording of the message, the unknown number. Every detail I could remember before memory started smoothing the edges. At 6:15, Emily walked in wearing one of Margaret's old University of Tennessee sweatshirts. It hung loose on her. "You kept that?" she asked. "It was in the hall closet." She pulled the sleeves over her hands and sat across from me. For a while, neither of us said anything. The refrigerator hummed. The coffee maker clicked. Outside, a mockingbird made noise like it owned the whole county. Finally, Emily looked at the legal pad. "You're writing it down?" "Yes. Dad, I don't want this to become some big thing." I took off my glasses and set them on the table. "Sweetheart, a man sent you a death threat." Her face tightened. "I know what he sent." Then it already became something. She looked away, and that's when I saw shame settle over her shoulders. Not fear exactly. Shame. That quiet, heavy kind that makes a person apologize for being hurt. I hated Trevor for that more than the message. "He didn't start like this," she said. "They never do." She looked back at me. I hadn't meant to say it so flatly. Emily rubbed her thumb along the edge of the coffee mug. "At first he was sweet. Too sweet, maybe. He brought lunch to school for me, sent flowers, remembered tiny things I said. I remember. He made me feel seen." I nodded. That part mattered. People like Trevor didn't begin with a locked bathroom door. They began with roses, apologies, soft voices, and just enough kindness to make the cruelty feel like weather. "He said my friends were jealous," Emily continued. "Then he said Carrie was a bad influence. Then he said my co-workers didn't respect me. Then he wanted my passwords because couples shouldn't have secrets." She gave a small, bitter laugh. "I teach kids how to recognize unhealthy relationships, Dad." "I know." And I still missed it. "No," I said. "You didn't miss it. He moved the line 1 inch at a time." That made her cry. Not loudly. Just 2 tears she wiped away fast, like she was embarrassed to have them. "He checked my bank account," she said. "Not every day. Just enough that I knew he could. He'd ask why I spent $12 at Panera, why I bought gas in Knoxville instead of Maryville, why I didn't answer during a staff meeting. I stayed still. There are times a father wants to roar. But if you roar too soon, your child may stop telling the truth. So I listened. "He made me think I was dramatic," she said. He'd say, "Emily, you're 34. You're too old to act like a teenager." Or he'd say, "Your dad spoiled you. That's why you don't understand real love." My hand tightened around my coffee cup. Emily noticed. "Please don't be mad." "I'm not mad at you. I should have told you." "You're telling me now." She leaned back in the chair and stared toward the porch door. I don't even know who I am right now. I waited. Then I said something I hadn't planned to say that morning. I know men like Trevor. Emily looked at me. I mean that in a specific way. She frowned a little. Dad, I took a breath. I was a U.S. Marshal for 31 years. The kitchen went very quiet. She blinked. I thought you worked courthouse security. I did sometimes. And prisoner transport. That too. She stared at me like I had just confessed to keeping a second family in Nashville. You never told me. Your mother knew. Mom knew. Of course she knew. Emily sat back hard. All this time, I didn't want that work sitting at our dinner table. She looked confused, almost hurt. I understood that. A child, even a grown one, doesn't like discovering rooms inside a parent she never knew existed. I wasn't some movie character, I said. No dramatic shootouts every week. Mostly paperwork, warrants, interviews, waiting, watching, knowing when not to move. That was the job more often than people think. Emily swallowed. Did you deal with men like him? Yes. The answer came out heavier than I wanted. Men like him don't want love, I said. They want ownership. And when ownership slips, they call it betrayal. She wrapped both hands around her mug. What do? We do not play his game. Her phone buzzed on the table. Both of us looked down. Unknown number. A photo came through. Emily's school parking lot. Taken from across the street. Her face went pale. The caption read, "Pretty easy place to find." She pushed away from the table so fast the chair legs scraped the floor. I can't go to work. You can. No, Dad, he knows where I... Emily. She stopped. You can go to work when it's safe. Today we make it safe. By 9 o'clock, I had called Deputy Aaron Pike. Aaron had been a skinny kid with a nervous smile when I first met him 20 years earlier. He was a deputy now with a wife, 2 teenage sons, and the worn-out patience of a man who dealt with human foolishness for a living. He stood in my driveway looking at the text messages on Emily's phone. I'm taking this seriously, he said. I figured you would. He glanced at me. But I'm not cutting corners because it's you, Ray. I'd be disappointed if you did. Emily stood beside me in the driveway, arms crossed tight. Aaron softened his voice when he spoke to her. Ms. Carter, save everything. Don't respond. Don't delete. If he shows up here, you call 911. If he shows up at your work, they call 911. You understand? She nodded. Good. Then he looked toward the porch. You got cameras? Not enough. Well, he said today would be a good day to change that. By lunchtime, Cal showed up in his old Ford with a toolbox, 2 lawn chairs, and a sack of barbecue sandwiches from a place in Alcoa he swore was better than anything in Knoxville. My older brother moved like a man assembled from spare parts. Bad hip, bad shoulder, loud knees. But he could still fix almost anything with a socket wrench and a dirty joke. He climbed out and looked at the cameras I'd bought that morning. Heard we're doing old man surveillance, he said. I brought sandwiches. Emily smiled for the first time all day. It wasn't much, but I took it. Denise Walker came over from next door a few minutes later. Denise was 59, a retired 911 dispatcher, and the kind of woman who could hear panic through a dial tone. She carried a notebook, a thermos, and the expression of somebody who had already made 3 lists. You put 1 camera by the side gate, she told Cal. That maple tree gives a blind spot after dark. Cal looked at me. She always this bossy. Always, I said. Denise pointed at him. And alive because of it. For the next 2 hours, my yard became a quiet little operation. Cal mounted cameras. Denise checked angles from her phone. I walked the property line, noting where headlights would sweep across the driveway and where a man might stand if he thought darkness made him invisible. Emily followed me once barefoot in old sneakers. You really think he'll come here? I think he wants you to think he can. That's not an answer. No, I said, but it's the truth. She nodded, though I could tell she didn't like it. Neither did I. That evening, we ate sandwiches on the porch with paper plates balanced on our knees. Cal told a story about dropping a transmission on his boot in 1987 and trying to convince the army doctor he could walk it off. Denise laughed. Emily almost did. For a few minutes, Trevor didn't own the air around us. Then night came. The porch light clicked on, and everybody got quiet. The next morning, I opened the front door just after sunrise. A cold mist sat low over the yard. At first, I didn't see anything unusual. Then something near the top porch step caught the light. Small. Silver. My stomach tightened before my mind caught up. I bent down slowly, my knee burning as I lowered myself. It was a necklace. A thin silver chain with a tiny round pendant. I knew it immediately. I had given it to Emily the day she graduated college. She'd worn it under her gown, smiling so wide Margaret had cried through every picture. I picked it up with 2 fingers. The clasp was broken. Behind me, Emily said, "Dad." I turned. She saw the necklace in my hand. All the color drained from her face. Trevor had been at my house, not yelling, not knocking, not making a scene, just close enough to leave a message on my porch. I looked past the steps, past the wet grass toward the quiet road. Then I closed my fist around that broken chain. The anatomy of a bully is simple. He tests a boundary. Then he waits to see who is afraid to enforce it. By 8 that morning, Denise had the porch footage pulled up on her laptop. She sat at my kitchen table like she was back at a 911 console, one hand on the mouse, the other holding a cup of coffee she had reheated twice and still hadn't touched. Emily stood behind her in the same sweatshirt, arms wrapped around herself. Cal leaned against the counter eating a biscuit. I stood by the sink and watched the screen. There, Denise said. She clicked pause. The image was grainy, black and white, but clear enough. At 2:13 in the morning, a dark sedan rolled slowly past my driveway. It disappeared for half a minute, then came back with the headlights off. A figure stepped out near the mailbox. Hood up, face turned down. He moved across the yard like he'd studied the place first. Emily made a small sound. Denise glanced back at her. "You don't have to watch this." "Yes, I do." The figure walked up the porch steps, placed something near the door, and stood there. That was the part that bothered me most. He didn't rush. He didn't look scared. For almost 10 seconds, he stood in the glow of that porch light, staring at my front door like he wanted us to know he had been there. Then he left. Cal stopped chewing. "Well," he said quietly, "that's not a man trying to get his girlfriend back." "No," I said, "it's a man building pressure." Emily looked at me. "What does that mean?" "It means he wants you scared enough to run back before he has to do anything louder." She sat down slowly. Denise closed the laptop halfway. "Ray, you thinking what I'm thinking?" "I'm thinking he's done this before." Emily looked between us. "You don't know that." "No," I said. "But men like Trevor usually don't invent themselves overnight." That was the sentence that started the paper trail. Ma, I spent the rest of the morning doing what most people think retired lawmen do in dramatic fashion, but what actually looks boring from the outside. I searched public records. Court filings, old addresses, civil complaints, property records, anything legal, public, and slow. Emily sat at the other end of the table making a list of every incident she could remember. The first time he asked for her phone password. The first time he joked about following her. The night he punched a hole in his own apartment wall and said she had made him act crazy. Every so often she would stop writing. Then she would remember something else and look ashamed all over again. "Put it down," I told her gently. "It sounds stupid." "Put it down anyway." At 11:40 a name surfaced. Marissa Cole, Sevierville. A dismissed protective order petition from 4 years earlier. Dismissed didn't mean false. Sometimes dismissed just meant scared. I looked at the address history. Trevor Malloy's name appeared 2 streets over from Marissa's old apartment complex during the same year. Not proof, but enough to ask a question. Denise had contacts from her dispatcher days who still knew who knew what. Nobody broke rules. Nobody shared private information. But by late afternoon, we had a phone number Marissa had once used for a small cleaning business. Emily stared at it on my legal pad. "You're going to call her?" "No," I said. "You are not ready for that conversation and she may not want to have it." "So what do we do?" We asked politely once. Marissa didn't answer the first call, or the second. At 6:03, she texted, "Who is this?" I wrote back carefully. "My name is Raymond Carter. My daughter recently left Trevor Malloy. Your name appeared in a public court filing. I will not bother you again if you don't want contact, but if you're willing to speak, it may help keep my daughter safe." 3 minutes passed, then 5. Then the phone buzzed. "Is she safe right now?" I looked at Emily. "She wants to know if you're safe." Emily swallowed and nodded. I replied, "Yes, she is with me." The next message came almost immediately. "Meet tomorrow. Not at my house. Smoky Mountain Diner in Sevierville, 10 a.m. Bring another woman. I don't meet strange men alone." Denise read it over my shoulder and nodded. "Smart lady." The Smoky Mountain Diner sat off a busy road in Sevierville, wedged between a tire shop and a place selling cabin rental brochures. It smelled like bacon grease coffee and old vinyl booths. A waitress called everybody honey whether she knew them or not. Marissa Cole arrived 7 minutes late. She was a thin woman in her early 40s with tired eyes and a green raincoat buttoned all the way to her throat. She paused in the doorway and scanned the diner like she expected danger to be seated somewhere near the pie case. Denise lifted one hand. Marissa came over but didn't sit right away. "Which one is Emily?" Emily raised her hand slightly. Marissa looked at her for a long second. Then her face changed. Not pity, recognition. She slid into the booth across from us. Did he take your phone yet? She asked. Emily's eyes filled. He tried. Marissa nodded like that answered 3 questions at once. For a while we let her lead. She stirred sugar into her coffee but never drank it. He's wonderful at first, she said. Makes you feel like God made one man who finally understands you. Then he starts correcting your life, your clothes, your friends, your family, your tone. Emily stared down at the table. Marissa noticed. Did he tell you that you were too sensitive? Emily gave a broken little laugh. All the time. Did he ever say your dad was controlling you? Emily looked up. Yes. Marissa looked at me then. He always picked someone to make into the villain. I didn't respond. I wanted every word to belong to her. She told us Trevor had done the same thing to her. Gifts, apologies, tears, promises, then isolation, then threats. When she tried to leave, he told people she was unstable. He recorded pieces of conversations, posted vague things online about being abused by a woman with untreated mental health issues. I filed for protection, she said, then I withdrew it. Emily leaned forward. Why? Marissa's hand tightened around the spoon. He sent me a picture of my dog in the backyard. Then he sent me a picture of my mother walking into church. Denise muttered something under her breath. Marissa gave a humorless smile. Exactly. Emily cried then, quietly. The waitress came by and pretended not to notice while refilling coffee. Marissa reached across the table and put one hand over Emily's. You're not crazy, she said. That's the first thing you need to hear. Emily covered her mouth. I looked out the window at traffic moving past the diner and felt something settle cold in my chest. Trevor wasn't just angry. He was practiced. Duh. That night he drove past my house again. Slow, bold. His headlights swept across Emily's bedroom window and held there a second too long. I stood in the dark living room with one hand on the back of the couch. Every old instinct in me wanted to step outside, to let him see me, to make him understand he had chosen the wrong porch. But that was exactly what he wanted. A reaction. A clip. A witness who only saw the last 10 seconds. So I stayed where I was. My knee throbbed. My hand ached around the couch frame. I hated feeling old in front of my daughter. I hated needing restraint more than strength. But I knew the shape of his plan now. He was telling people I was dangerous. An obsessive old father. A retired lawman who had threatened him. He wanted me angry first. So I sat down, swallowed 2 pain pills with cold coffee, and saved one more video file. At 11:18, Emily's phone lit up. A video. It showed her earlier that day outside the school office crying beside her car. The message underneath read, "She still needs me. Tomorrow I'm coming to bring her home." Emily looked at me terrified and exhausted. I looked toward the porch. The light was already on. Then tomorrow I said he could meet everyone. The next evening, every light on my porch was on before the sun had fully disappeared. Not because I wanted to make a statement, because I wanted every camera to see clearly. Cal carried 2 folding chairs out of the garage. You know, he grunted, setting one beside mine. When I retired, I figured excitement meant finding a good deal on motor oil. I smiled. Life had other plans. It usually does. Across the street, Denise adjusted the angle of one of her own porch cameras. She wasn't hiding what she was doing. Neither was I. If Trevor wanted witnesses, he was going to get them. Emily stepped outside carrying a tray with glasses of sweet tea. She looked better than she had the day before, but only a little. There was still hesitation in every movement, as though she expected someone to appear every time she opened a door. You don't have to stay outside, I told her. I know. You can go back in. She shook her head. No. Her voice was quiet. I've spent 2 years hiding inside. That sentence stayed with me. She handed Cal a glass. He looked at her and smiled. Your daddy and I are too old to run after anybody. Emily almost laughed. Good. So if anybody comes, Cal continued, we'll make him walk to us. Even Denise smiled from across the yard. Sometimes laughter doesn't solve anything. It simply reminds fear that it doesn't own every inch of the room. At 7:42, Deputy Aaron Pike pulled into the neighborhood. He parked half a block away. Not in my driveway. Not directly in front of the house. Close enough to respond quickly. Far enough that nobody could claim he'd arrived to intimidate anyone. He climbed out and walked over. You expecting company? I think so. You armed? I looked at him. My coffee's still hot. He nodded once. I'll take that as a no. It is. Aaron looked around the yard. Cal, Denise, Emily, 2 porch cameras, 1 driveway camera, 1 side gate camera, everything visible, everything legal. Good setup, he said. It wasn't built overnight. He glanced toward Emily. If he steps onto your property after being told to leave, call it out clearly. I understand. And don't touch him. I won't. Aaron gave me a long look. I know you won't. Then he walked back toward his cruiser. The neighborhood slowly settled into evening. Sprinklers clicked on. Dogs barked somewhere down the street. Someone nearby started grilling hamburgers. It felt strangely ordinary, which is exactly what I wanted. At 8:16, headlights appeared at the end of the street. A dark sedan. Emily stiffened. I noticed before she said anything. Inside if you want. She looked at the approaching car. Then at me. I'm staying. The sedan rolled slowly toward the driveway. Stopped. Engine idling. Nobody got out. For almost 30 seconds. Then Trevor stepped onto the pavement. He wore jeans, a clean button-down shirt, and the same calm smile I'd seen at the gas station. His phone was already in his hand. Held upright. Recording. Evening, he called. Nobody answered. He started walking toward the porch. Still smiling. Still filming. Emily. She didn't respond. I just came to talk. Cal leaned toward me. Funny. What? Every man who says he just wants to talk usually means everybody else does the listening. I almost smiled. Trevor reached the bottom step. He turned his phone slightly so it captured all of us. Look at this, he said loudly into the camera. Her father actually organized an ambush. Nobody moved. He laughed softly. I've never seen so many retirees in one place. Cal raised one hand. Son. Trevor looked over. I've had knee replacement surgery that scared me more than you. Even Aaron, standing beside his patrol car down the street, lowered his head for a second. Trevor ignored the comment. His attention returned to me. Mr. Carter. I folded my hands together. Trevor, you've been telling lies about me. No. You've been contacting people. Yes, trying to destroy my reputation. I looked him straight in the eye. No. He tilted his head. No. I've been collecting facts. Something flickered across his face. Only for a second. Then the smile returned. Emily. His voice became softer. You know this isn't who your dad really is. Emily stood up. Her knees trembled, but her voice didn't. You need to leave. Trevor ignored her completely. Instead, he kept talking to me. You're making her afraid. I almost admired the nerve. He was trying to rewrite reality while every camera on the property watched him do it. I answered slowly. No. He frowned. No. She was already afraid. Silence. Trevor shifted his weight. You don't know what happened between us. I know enough. You weren't there. No. But she was. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Not from fear. From finally hearing someone believe her without asking for proof she didn't deserve to have to give. Trevor climbed the first porch step. I just want 5 minutes. I remained seated. No. He climbed another step. I deserve to explain. No. A third step. You can't keep her from me. My voice stayed calm. Trevor. He stopped. You can leave tonight as a free man. His smile faded. Or, I continued, you can stay here and let every person watching, including your own phone, record you ruining your own life. For the first time all evening, his confidence slipped. Only a little. But I saw it. He recovered quickly. You think you've trapped me? I don't think anything. He looked around. Denise stood on her porch. Cal remained in his chair. Emily stood beside the front door. Across the street, 2 neighbors had quietly stepped outside after noticing the commotion. Nobody shouted. Nobody threatened him. Nobody touched him. It wasn't an ambush. It was accountability. Trevor laughed. You old people really planned this. Cal shrugged. We've had plenty of time. Trevor took one more step. His foot crossed the edge of my porch. I stood, slowly, carefully. My knee complained the entire way up. I pointed toward the sidewalk. You are now trespassing. He looked amused. Really? You've been asked to leave? I haven't done anything. You've been asked to leave. He lifted his phone closer to my face. So everybody can hear? He smiled into the camera. This crazy old man threatening me. Deputy Pike started walking toward us. Not running. Walking. Professional. Measured. Evening, Aaron said. Trevor turned immediately. Deputy. Perfect timing. I was hoping you'd show up. Aaron stopped at the foot of the porch. I've been here. Trevor smiled broadly. Good. Then he looked directly at me. I told you nobody would believe you. He reached into his jacket pocket. Slowly. Carefully. Not for a weapon. For another phone. He held it up between 2 fingers. You know what's funny? Nobody answered. I recorded Raymond Carter threatening me 2 days ago. Emily gasped. Trevor looked pleased. I figured eventually I'd need it. He tapped the screen. I think the deputy should hear it. Aaron extended his hand. I'll listen. Trevor handed him the phone with complete confidence. I didn't move. Didn't protest. Didn't explain. Cal glanced at me. You okay? Yes. You don't seem worried. I've learned something over the years. What? I kept my eyes on Trevor. When a man believes he's already won, I paused. He usually stops checking for the truth. Aaron pressed the play button. The porch fell completely silent. Nobody spoke while the recording played. Trevor stood with his arms folded, the confidence practically shining off him. Emily gripped the porch railing so tightly her knuckles turned white. Cal looked from me to Deputy Pike without saying a word. Aaron held the phone close enough for everyone to hear. Static. A car door closing. Then my voice. I'll handle you my way. Trevor smiled. The recording continued. You've pushed this far enough. Another pause. You won't like what happens next. Emily looked at me stunned. Dad, Aaron raised one hand without taking his eyes off the phone. Let's hear all of it. Trevor's smile widened. There isn't much left. The recording ended. Silence settled over the porch. From the road, a passing pickup slowed for a second before continuing on. Even the crickets seemed quieter. Aaron looked at me. Ray, I nodded once. That's my voice. Emily's face fell. Trevor spread his hands. I told you. He looked directly into Aaron's eyes. I've been trying to stay away from him. He's the one threatening me. Aaron didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at me again. You want to respond? I do. I reached into my shirt pocket and pulled out a small flash drive. Trevor frowned. What is that? My copy. His expression changed ever so slightly. I record every phone call. No, I said. But my porch cameras record everything that happens near my front door, including conversations. Trevor laughed. Convenient. It is. I handed the flash drive to Denise. She connected it to her laptop sitting on the porch table. Within seconds, the same conversation appeared on the screen. Aaron stepped closer. So this is the original? Yes. Trevor folded his arms tighter. Anybody can edit a file. Denise looked up. So can you. Aaron glanced at both of them. Let's just play it. The conversation began. The first few seconds sounded exactly like Trevor's version. My voice. His voice. The same background noise. Then something happened. Instead of ending where Trevor's recording stopped, the conversation kept going. Trevor's voice became much clearer. Go ahead, say something angry. Silence. Then again. Come on, old man. Tell me what you're really thinking. My voice answered calmly. I'm thinking you should leave my property. Trevor laughed on the recording. No, that's boring. Another few seconds passed. Then his voice again. Say you'll handle me. I remembered that phone call now. He'd kept interrupting me, trying to bait me. The recording continued. Finally, I answered. I'll handle you my way. Trevor's smile slowly disappeared. Because this time, everyone heard the next sentence. My way means every camera, every report, and every legal option available. Emily covered her mouth. Cal muttered, well, there it is. The recording continued. Trevor's voice sounded irritated now. Nobody wants to hear that. Then another pause. My next sentence came through. You've pushed this far enough. Again, Trevor's version had stopped there. The original didn't. Because Emily deserves to live without looking over her shoulder. Aaron looked up. Nobody said anything. The difference was obvious. Trevor had removed every sentence that explained the first half. But something else caught my attention. I looked toward Denise. Back up 10 seconds. She did. We listened again. This time Aaron frowned. Stop. Denise paused the audio. What? Aaron leaned closer to the speaker. Play that little section one more time. She did. Right before the edit point, a weather forecast played softly from my kitchen radio. Showers moving through Blount County overnight. Then in Trevor's version, it suddenly jumped. Sunny skies expected tomorrow afternoon. Aaron looked at Trevor. Interesting. Trevor shrugged. So, I spoke quietly. My radio was broadcasting live. Aaron nodded. A live weather report doesn't skip 12 hours in half a second. Cal chuckled. Weather ain't that fast. Nobody laughed. Aaron certainly didn't. Trevor shifted his weight. It could have been another station. It could have, Aaron agreed. But let's keep listening. Denise resumed the recording. Near the end came something none of us had expected. The call sounded finished. Footsteps. A car door. Then Trevor's voice farther away. Very quiet. Almost too quiet. That should be enough. The porch went completely still. Trevor stared at the laptop. He stopped. There wasn't much left to say. Aaron looked at him. You forgot to trim that part. Trevor swallowed. I don't know what that means. No, Aaron handed his phone back. You presented edited evidence? I didn't edit anything. You really want to stick with that statement? Trevor opened his mouth, closed it again. Just then another car pulled up. A silver SUV. Emily looked confused. I know that car. A woman stepped out. Linda Matthews, the principal at Emily's elementary school. She walked up beside us carrying a folder. "I'm sorry I'm late." Erin nodded politely. "You have something—" She looked at Trevor before answering. "Mr. Malloy came to our school 3 different times after Emily asked him not to." Trevor immediately interrupted. "I was bringing flowers." Linda ignored him. "Our security cameras show him waiting across the parking lot for over an hour last Tuesday." She handed Erin several printed photographs. Emily stared at them. "I never knew." "You weren't supposed to," Linda said gently. "We noticed because one of our staff members thought the same vehicle kept appearing." Trevor looked around desperately now. "This is ridiculous." Another car stopped. Marissa climbed out. She hadn't planned to come. I could tell by the way she hesitated before walking up the driveway. Erin looked surprised. "Miss Cole." She nodded. "I'd like to make a statement." Trevor actually took one step backward. Marissa saw it. "You remember me?" He forced a smile. "I think you've mistaken—" "No." Her voice was steady. "I made that mistake once already." She stood beside Emily, not in front of her, beside her. "He isolated me from my family," Marissa said. "He recorded our arguments. He edited conversations. Then he told everyone I was unstable." Erin wrote quietly in his notebook. Trevor looked around the porch. Everywhere he turned, another piece of the story had arrived before he could rewrite it. Then his own phone vibrated. He glanced down without thinking. His live stream was still running. Hundreds of comments were scrolling across the screen. People had watched the entire thing. His attempt to make me look like an angry old man had become a live broadcast of his own lies falling apart. He ended the stream immediately. Too late. Erin stepped forward. "Trevor Malloy." Trevor looked up. "Based on what I've seen tonight along with previous reports, I'm placing you under arrest, pending charges related to criminal trespass, harassment, intimidation, and possible evidence tampering. Additional charges will depend on the investigation." Trevor's face turned pale. "You can't be serious." "I am." "This old man set me up," I finally spoke. "No." Erin took Trevor's phone. "Cameras don't set people up." He turned Trevor around and placed him in handcuffs. Emily quietly began to cry. Not because Trevor was being arrested, because for the first time in a long time she wasn't wondering whether anyone would believe her. As Erin guided Trevor toward the patrol car, Trevor looked back at me one last time. His smile returned. Smaller now. More desperate than confident. "This isn't over." The patrol car door closed. Its taillights disappeared down the street. Thus, 2 weeks later I was sitting at the same kitchen table when the mail arrived. Among the bills and grocery coupons sat a thick envelope from a law office in Knoxville. Emily looked over my shoulder. "What is it?" I opened it carefully. A civil demand letter. Trevor intended to sue me for harassment, emotional distress, and defamation. Emily's shoulders sank. "Oh no." I read the last page. Then I folded the letter neatly. Cal looked at me. "You gonna worry now?" I couldn't help smiling. "No." "Why not?" I tapped the envelope against the table. "Because he finally put everything in writing." 3 weeks later, I stood outside the Blount County Courthouse with a paper cup of coffee that had already gone cold. The morning air carried that familiar mix of humidity and fresh-cut grass that East Tennessee seems to specialize in during late spring. Emily stood beside me wearing a navy blue blazer she usually saved for parent conferences. She looked nervous, not frightened anymore. There was a difference. Fear makes you want to run. Nerves mean you're staying. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded once. "I think so." "You don't have to be perfect in there." "I know." "You only have to tell the truth." She took a slow breath. "I can do that." For the first time in months, I believed her. Trevor arrived 10 minutes later. Dark gray suit, fresh haircut, polished shoes. If someone had passed him on the sidewalk without knowing the story, they would have seen a respectable professional heading into court. Appearances had always been his strongest weapon. He spotted us. For a second, I expected another smug smile. Instead, he simply adjusted his tie and walked inside. Maybe his lawyer had finally convinced him that charm wasn't evidence. Or, inside the courtroom, everything felt smaller than television makes it look. No dramatic speeches, no cheering crowds, just wooden benches, quiet conversations, stacks of paperwork, and people waiting for ordinary justice to do its ordinary work. Deputy Aaron Pike nodded when he saw us. "So far, so good," he said quietly. "You sleep at all?" I asked. "A little." He smiled. "Paperwork's worse than the arrest." "I remember." He laughed. "Guess some things never change." Emily squeezed my arm. "You really miss working?" I thought about it. "No." "What do you miss?" "The people who deserved someone to keep showing up." She smiled softly. "I think you're still doing that." Before I could answer, the courtroom deputy asked everyone to rise. The hearing lasted nearly 3 hours. Not because anyone shouted, because the truth takes time when it's built one page at a time. Trevor's attorney argued that I had organized a campaign of harassment against his client. He claimed I'd contacted former acquaintances, damaged Trevor's reputation, and intentionally intimidated him. Then our attorney stood. She didn't raise her voice. She simply opened 3 thick binders, one by one. The first contained printed text messages. The second held photographs, timestamps, call logs, and security camera stills. The third contained transcripts, witness statements, and certified copies of public records. Facts don't sound dramatic, but stacked together they become surprisingly heavy. Denise testified first. She explained how the neighborhood cameras worked, how the recordings were stored automatically, how every file included an unbroken digital timestamp. Trevor's attorney asked if she disliked his client. Denise shrugged. I didn't know him well enough to dislike him. A few people smiled. She continued, I only know what the cameras recorded. Nothing more, nothing less. Aaron testified next. He explained why he had treated both Trevor and me the same during the initial investigation. No one received special treatment. No. You've known Mr. Carter for years. Yes. And that influenced your investigation. It influenced me to be extra careful. That answer seemed to carry weight with the judge. It certainly did with me. Then Marissa walked to the witness stand. She looked calmer than the first day we'd met her at the diner. Still nervous, but no longer hiding. She described Trevor's pattern, the gifts, the isolation, the edited recordings, the attempts to make everyone else look unstable. Trevor never looked at her, not once. Finally, Emily's name was called. She glanced at me. I nodded. Nothing more. She didn't need me to answer for her anymore. She walked to the witness stand alone. Her hands trembled when she took the oath. But once she began speaking, her voice steadied. She told the court about checking her phone every few minutes because Trevor expected instant replies. About apologizing for things she hadn't done. About losing touch with friends because explaining Trevor had become exhausting. About sitting in that gas station bathroom believing she had nowhere else to go. The courtroom stayed quiet. Nobody interrupted. Nobody rolled their eyes. Nobody asked why she hadn't left sooner. She was finally being allowed to tell the whole story. Near the end, our attorney asked one final question. Ms. Carter, Emily looked up. What changed? She thought about it for several seconds. Then she smiled through tears. I realized leaving wasn't the hardest part. Another pause. The hardest part was believing someone would believe me. She looked toward me, then back at the judge. I'm not afraid to tell the truth anymore. I felt something loosen inside my chest that I'd been carrying since 10:47 on that rainy Thursday night. Not relief, something deeper. Peace, maybe. After a short recess, the judge returned with his ruling. He spoke calmly, without anger, without sympathy, just the law. He found the evidence of repeated harassment, intimidation, unwanted surveillance, and manipulated recordings credible and well supported. The edited audio significantly damaged Trevor's claims. The independent witness testimony strengthened the overall pattern of behavior. The request for continued protective measures was granted. Trevor was ordered to have no direct or indirect contact with Emily. Additional criminal proceedings would continue separately. Trevor lowered his head. For the first time since I'd met him, he looked like a man who had run out of stories. Outside the courthouse, reporters weren't waiting. No television cameras. No applause. Life simply continued. People walked back to work. Someone laughed across the parking lot. A delivery truck rumbled past. Justice rarely feels like a movie. Most of the time, it feels like paperwork finally catching up with the truth. Emily stood beside me on the courthouse steps. It's over. I smiled gently. The legal part isn't completely over. She laughed. I know. Then she wrapped her arms around me. Thank you. I hugged her back. You don't owe me thanks. I do. No. I looked into her eyes. You did the hardest part yourself. The following Saturday, we replaced the loose railing on my front porch. Cal insisted on supervising while doing almost none of the actual work. I've reached the age, he announced from his lawn chair, where giving advice burns fewer calories. Denise rolled her eyes from next door. That's because you haven't given good advice since 1998. I distinctly remember one excellent suggestion in 2004. What was it? I told Ray not to buy that ugly recliner. Emily laughed. He bought it anyway. And it's still ugly, Denise replied. For the first time in months, the laughter sounded completely normal. No one forced it. No one needed it to hide fear. It simply belonged there. As we tightened the last bolt on the railing, I leaned against the porch post to rest my knee. Emily noticed. You should let me finish. I've still got a few good years left. She smiled. I know. I looked at the porch light above us. I can't fight every battle for you anymore, sweetheart. She shook her head. I don't need you to. No, you already taught me how. That hit me harder than I expected. I reached over and squeezed her shoulder. Just promise me one thing. What? When life gets dark? She glanced up at the porch light. Leave the light on. I smiled. Exactly. That evening, after everyone had gone home, I carried 2 glasses of sweet tea onto the porch. One for me, one that I quietly set beside Margaret's empty rocking chair. The crickets sang from the trees beyond the yard. The neighborhood settled into another ordinary Tennessee night. The porch light glowed over the steps just as it had every evening since my wife asked me never to turn it off. For a long time, I thought protecting the people I loved meant standing in front of danger. Now I understand that sometimes it means standing beside them until they're strong enough to stand on their own. If you've ever had to stay calm while protecting someone you love, then you know how difficult that can be. I'd love to hear what you would have done in my place. And if this story reminded you that patience and truth still matter, thank you for spending this time with me.